On September 8th, social media erupted with reports of numerous amphibious tanks being transported from Xiamen to Fuzhou in Fujian province, using civilian routes. This activity, also observed within Fuzhou city streets, has intensified speculations of escalating military preparations. Today, we delve into the economic evolution of Fujian, a province rich with Taiwanese business ventures and a hub for foreign trade, now under the looming clouds of war. In 2022, Fujian emerged as a frontrunner in China's economic landscape, tying with neighboring Jiangxi with a 4.7% GDP growth and ranking 8th nationally in terms of total volume. The province's per capita GDP nearly reached $20,000, demonstrating a remarkable 640-fold growth from 1978 to 2019, and climbing 15 spots among the 31 provinces in China. However, this illustrious achievement came to an abrupt halt in 2023 due to the escalating tensions in the Taiwan Strait. Data from Fujian Customs revealed a 12% year-on-year drop in export trade for the first 8 months, amounting to $108 billion, with August witnessing a 9% decrease, valued at $14 billion. This decline, amplified by strained relations across the Taiwan Strait, led international buyers to shift their orders, drastically affecting Fujian's export sector. In fact, looking back at the economic development of Fujian, every major turning point is closely related to the relations across the Taiwan Strait. In its early years under communist rule, Fujian functioned primarily as a military hub, resulting in hindered economic development. From 1958 to 1978, it served as a launchpad for military operations against Taiwan's Kinmen Island. The focus on military operations, along with insufficient national investments, led to the province's economic vulnerability, reflected in a 1980 per capita GDP of 348 yuan, which was lower than the national average of 468 yuan. January 1979 marked the dawn of China's reform and opening up, punctuated by the issuance of the Message to Taiwanese Compatriots by the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, breaking a 30-year-long deadlock between the two straits. Fujian, being the closest mainland province to Taiwan, emerged as the vanguard in the CCP's efforts to reunify Taiwan, pioneering several ostensibly preferential and convenient policies towards the island. Beginning of 1981, Fujian opened 4 ports for Taiwanese vessels and established reception stations for Taiwanese compatriots, heralding an era of cross-strait trade and personnel exchanges. November 1980 saw a first minor trade transaction with Taiwan, and in 1981, the first Taiwan-funded enterprise established its presence in Fuzhou. This marked the commencement of economic rejuvenation in Fujian. Subsequently, the Chinese government unleashed a series of initiatives aimed at fostering cross-strait economic and personnel exchanges, catalyzing a swift warm-up in civilian trade activities. In 1989, sanctioned by the central government, Fujian created Taiwanese investment zones in Mawei, Xinlin, Jimei, and Haicang, and introduced agricultural trial regions in Dongshan. The following year, they implemented special policies to entice Taiwanese companies to invest and establish manufacturing units in the province. Under these circumstances, Fujian's per capita GDP soared to over 2,000 yuan in 1991, surpassing the national average of 1,912 yuan by 6%. The true turning point for Fujian's economy emanated from the establishment of the 1992 consensus between mainland China and the Kuomintang authorities in Taiwan, fostering a gradual thaw in relations and a diminishing atmosphere of military confrontation. Seizing this opportunity, Fujian expanded over 10 minor trade ports for Taiwan and established a series of agriculture technology parks involving Taiwanese businessmen in cities like Xiamen, Fuzhou, Fu'an, and Longhai. Subsequently, Taiwanese enterprises flocked to cities such as Quanzhou and Xiamen in large numbers, stimulating a robust development in the local private export economy. By 1997, nearly 5 years later, Fujian's per capita GDP skyrocketed again to 8,775 yuan, outperforming the national average of 6,481 by a staggering 35%. 1997 emerged as an important year for Fujian-Taiwan cooperation, with Taiwanese investments in Fujian diversifying from agriculture to encompass industries and tertiary sectors. The scale of investment from Taiwanese businessmen expanded gradually, with a rising proportion of medium and large projects and a visible elevation in the level of investment technology. By the end of 1999, the province had approved 5,894 Taiwanese investment enterprises, with contract Taiwanese capital amounting to nearly $11 billion and almost $8 billion in actual investment. By the end of 2008, Taiwanese investments in Fujian had burgeoned to over 9,700 projects, involving contracted Taiwanese capital of $20 billion and actual investments amounting to $14 billion. Given that the majority of Taiwanese enterprises are primarily engaged in foreign trade, their influx significantly propelled the development of Fujian's export-oriented economy. Fujian's economic surge is closely tied to improving relations with Taiwan and the influx of Taiwanese businesses, with diminishing war threats directly influencing its economic path. But like all foreign companies operating in China, Taiwanese firms have not had a smooth ride in Fujian. As tensions escalate in the US-China relationship and across the Taiwan Strait, a wave of decoupling from China is engulfing the global supply chain. Clients worldwide are urging Taiwanese exporters to establish alternative supply chains outside China, prompting many Taiwanese and foreign companies to withdraw from the country. Fujian, unfortunately, has not been spared, emerging as one of the provinces hit hardest by these developments. Several reasons underpin the exit of Taiwanese businesses from China. Escalating labor costs, the disappearance of earlier policy incentives targeting Taiwanese companies, and various challenges such as intellectual property theft, brand counterfeiting, employee poaching, forced technology transfers, and personal safety risks under the counter-espionage laws. Additionally, the deteriorating macroeconomic environment in China, coupled with a series of political economic policies pushed by the CCP, including the policy of state advances, the private sector retreats, and the strategy of internal circulation, they have all substantially reduced the appeal of the Chinese business environment. Consequently, the withdrawal of Taiwanese businesses from mainland China is trending, marking the end of an era where China served as the primary manufacturing base. Fujian, given its unique position, faces not only the repercussions of these larger landscape shifts, but also is critically impacted by the escalating crisis across the Taiwan Strait, all of which pose immense shocks to its economy. The foremost casualty of these shifts is Fujian's foreign trade sector. Fujian's economy is fundamentally export-oriented, heavily reliant on the export sector. For instance, according to data in Fujian's statistical yearbook, in 2021, provincial-level tax revenue amounted to 249 billion yuan, with 113 billion yuan, or a staggering 45%, coming from foreign trade activities. From 1997 to 2021, Fujian's export scale ballooned from $10 billion to $167 billion, marking a 15-fold increase. Quanzhou City emerged as the primary hub for product exports, mainly focusing on various electromechanical products and textiles. In 2022, despite troubles surfacing in Fujian's foreign trade exports, the region experienced an 8.8% increase in export value, reaching $182 billion, seemingly outperforming the national average export growth of 6.8%. This apparent growth, partially due to Fujian's lesser impact from COVID-19 disruptions compared to major economic hubs, propelled the province's GDP growth rate to the forefront last year. A portion of overseas orders also contributed. Conversely, Quanzhou, Fujian's industrial powerhouse, displayed a stark contrast with only a 1.3% growth in export delivery value, as reported by its Statistics Bureau, suggesting a loss of momentum in exports. This data, considered more timely and accurate than customs data, hints at a potential discrepancy in the reported economic growth, indicating that the province might not be doing as well as suggested by customs data. What exactly transpired around 2022? The foremost catalyst was the severe deterioration in cross-strait relations, with the shadow of war once again looming large over the region. In 2019, Hong Kong witnessed the Anti-Extradition Law Amendment Bill movement, which was met with harsh suppression by mainland China, virtually stripping Hong Kong of its autonomy. This incident heavily unnerved the Taiwanese population, effectively eradicating any favorable opinions towards the one country, two systems policy proposed by the CCP. This shift was reflected in the devastating loss of the Kuomintang in Taiwan's early 2020 presidential elections, resulting in the Democratic Progressive Party assuming long-term governance. The latter has steadily consolidated power over the governmental structure and military, growing increasingly confident and assertive in its stance towards mainland China. Consequently, this has accelerated the deterioration of cross-strait relations. In a notable development that escalated diplomatic tensions last August 2022, U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan nearly brought the two nations to the brink of a war. In retaliation, the mainland Chinese government initiated a series of punitive measures, including a brief military blockade of the strait and imposing retaliatory bans on over 100 types of Taiwanese agricultural products. From that point onward, the threat of war has been a grim and palpable presence. The subsequent year, 2023, saw a significant shrinkage in Fujian's foreign trade, with the decline continuously magnifying. Consequently, the export-oriented industrial enterprises in Fujian found themselves in an economic quagmire, a situation that inevitably reflected in a drastic downturn in profit margins. It's noteworthy that, in China, foreign trade is perceived as a truly profitable sector. According to data from the Fujian Statistics Bureau, industrial enterprises in the province recorded profits of 407 billion yuan in 2022, a 7% decrease from 2021, surpassing the national average decline in industrial profits, which stood at 3.5%. In 2023, with Fujian's foreign trade plummeting drastically, the profits between January and May nosedived to 107 billion, a 31% reduction compared to the same period in last year. This is significantly higher than the nationwide average profit decrease of 22%. In a span of just 1.5 years, enterprises in Fujian have seen their profits halved, a crippling phenomenon that no region can withstand, Fujian being no exception. With the escalating tension in the Taiwan Strait, the economic structure in Fujian is on a fast track to collapse, with no other conceivable outcome. The real estate sector, another pillar of Fujian's economy, has also been severely impacted. In 2022, funds allocated for real estate development in Fujian decreased by 23%, and the decline continued with a 24% drop from January to July 2023, effectively halving the sector within a year and a half. Turning our focus to Xiamen, another critical port city in Fujian, it's evident that investments have dwindled severely amidst the looming shadows of war. In the first half of this year, Xiamen experienced an 8.7% contraction in fixed asset investments. Thus, it's evident that the twin pillars of Fujian's economy, export and real estate development, have been severed, resulting in a steep decline in fiscal revenue. In 2021, Fujian's fiscal income peaked at 673 billion yuan, with land sales contributing 334 billion, accounting for almost 50%. In 2022, the fiscal income contracted to 597 billion, with land sales reducing to 263 billion. In the first half of this year, revenue from land sales was only 80 billion, with an estimated annual total below 150, and the yearly fiscal income approximately 470 billion. As the risk of war intensifies, it's projected that by next year, Fujian's fiscal revenue might plummet to below 400 billion yuan, paving the way for a steep economic decline that would potentially rock the province to its very foundations. Let's take a look at the current situation in the Taiwan Strait. On September 10th, tensions escalated in the areas surrounding Taiwan with the sighting of 17 Chinese military aircraft and drones conducting maritime operations, as reported by Taiwan's Ministry of Defense. A significant number of these aircrafts, specifically 11, breached the median line entering Taiwan's southwest airspace, along with 4 Chinese naval vessels conducting a joint patrol. In response, Taiwan's military vigilantly monitored the situation, deploying forces and activating shore-based missile systems. The latest data revealed by the ministry indicates that in 2023, a staggering 3,157 Chinese aircrafts and 1,225 naval vessels were detected around the Taiwan Strait, with Chinese aircraft entering Taiwan's airspace 187 times, totaling 1,136 sorties. On September 9th, military vessels from the United States and Canada traversed the Taiwan Strait, marking the second instance this year, with the previous occurrence being on June 3rd. The Chinese military reiterated its condemnation, accusing the naval forces of openly hyping up their transit through the strait. U.S. President Joe Biden, while visiting Hanoi, Vietnam, indicated on September 10th at a press conference after meeting with Chinese Premier Li Qiang that he believes China might not be capable of invading Taiwan due to the evident economic crisis in the country. He also mentioned that the Chinese President Xi Jinping, quote, has his hands full right now. Xi Jinping was notably absent at the G20 summit held in New Delhi on September 9th. But despite Biden's assertions, the U.S. and its allies remain actively engaged in preparations to counter a potential crisis in the Taiwan Strait. In addition, on September 8th, Indian officials revealed that their military is strategizing for a potential war in the Taiwan Strait, evaluating possible responses in case of an aggression from the Chinese Communist Party. The strategies being considered include offering logistical and supply-based support to the U.S. and its allies, facilitating maintenance and material transshipments and medical escorts for the coalition forces, or directly engaging in military action by opening a new front along the Indo-China border to divert China's attention. This revelation came after several consultations where the U.S. sought India's stance and attitude towards the potential conflict in the Taiwan Strait. Additionally, the UK Financial Times reported that the U.S. House of Representatives Special Committee on U.S.-China Strategic Competition plans to conduct a war game simulation with financial and corporate executives on September 11th to elevate the awareness of investment risks in China. The simulation will contemplate the economic repercussions of a conflict between the U.S. and China over Taiwan, with a focus on systemic risks associated with U.S. capital flows to China and financial institutions' exposure to the Chinese economy during political crises.